West Liberty University, located here in West Liberty, West Virginia, home to the Hilltoppers and the student-run newspaper, The Trumpet, the student voice of the Hilltop. 2021 marks the 100th anniversary, and throughout the years, The Trumpet has covered countless stories bringing students together. The Trumpet is a place of meeting new people, coming together to share their own passions, to gain or build upon experience in writing, photography, and videography, among other things.
My name's Ron Reynolds. I went to West Liberty, got my degree in art education. I did the first 23, 24 years of my teaching career in art, and now I'm going to finish it in middle school science.
So my name is David Hanna, and I am the program director for athletic training at West Liberty University. I'm a full-time faculty member and oversee the athletic training curriculum. The role that I had at the Trumpet newspaper was a sports editor. I don't remember if I was the head sports editor. I think I was an assistant sports editor. There were a few others there. So I got to go around, interview players, coaches, report on all the sports that we had at the time.
My name is Gabrielle Blanchard, and I graduated at West Liberty last May. Well, when I started out for the Trumpet, I started out as a contributing writer, and I did that for a couple of months, and then I became assistant editor, and then I was advertising manager. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of the title there for a second. And then because we were sort of short-staffed, I did a little bit of everything when it became a sort of a 3-person team after that. So we were all helping each other with each other's jobs.
My name is Shanna Baker, and when I was the editor of the Trumpet, or during my years at the Trumpet, I was actually Shanna Deal. Let's see, I started as a reporter and then eventually was named editor. Actually, I transferred to West Liberty, then State College in 1998 from West Virginia University. And I was a staff writer at the Daily Athenaeum at WVU. And I loved writing, I loved journalism. So one of the first things I did as soon as I transferred was I found the Trumpet office and I said, how do I become a part of this?
I'm Maureen Golick. So I started as advertising manager, probably 2002, if I take a guess. And with that, I sold ads, designed ads, placed ads. And then I think somewhere in there, I was staff writer and advertising manager. And then I was assistant editor for a while as well. And I would guess and say that was probably 2003-ish.
I was involved with the Trumpet from 1992 to 1994. I submitted comics and I actually got sued by the English department that I did, and the advisor and the editor of the Trumpet, we all got sued, and it was quite an experience, a learning experience for the First Amendment. And we ended up winning because it came down that since the comics were on the editorial page, people were going to be offended possibly. So it wasn't an offensive comic even. I didn't think so, but the English professor did.
I was actually a biology major, and I think it was at the end of my sophomore year, continued a minor in biology, but switched to communications as a major. So I would have been there, I guess, 91, 92, and 92, 93, actively as a sports writer and editor. So
I joined the Trumpet because I have a huge passion for writing, first and foremost. That's what I love to do. I'm mostly like a fiction writer, and I like writing in that realm, but it gave me this, it challenged me. It gave me the skills I need. It was like, this is something that I can learn how to do and make money off of it. It was a more viable way to write and do what I love to do for a living, while also actually being practical about it. Like, I can make a future out of this. This is a guaranteed work. So it was kind of blending passion with a future that I could actually start building on.
We were trained that news is to be unbiased. We are to be objective. We are there to ask questions so that we can inform the public. And we're there to ask the probing questions that maybe the public is uncomfortable asking. That's our job. Our job is to uncover the truth. And that's how I was trained. And that is still how I believe journalism should be.
and I submitted comics all the time, and they were put in every issue. And then at the end, the editor, the main editor, Matt Smith, he suggested I turn these comics into a book. And I did, and I published the book, and I believe the library still has a copy of it there at West Lib. I like them all so much. I really can't pick out one. It'd be like saying which one of my students right now is my favorite. I just couldn't do it. I like them all. It was all an experience. I never turned anything in that was just quickly done just for the sake of doing something. I put a lot into every comic.
I think one of my most memorable stories that I did was a feature story on a coach at the time named Dan Petrie, and he was a basketball coach up there. I did a big feature story on him. I remember sitting in the College Union interviewing him.
A couple years ago, I wrote an article on Martin Luther King Day, and it's probably one of the proudest things that I've written, because I wrote about how you can't just talk about how he had a dream. You actually have to live the act. And I kind of talked about how he's considered white moderates to be the biggest threat to democracy, more than so white supremacists. And you have to walk the walk, talk the talk, and you have to back up your actions, because if you're not following through, you're supporting the bad guy if you're not speaking up and speaking out.
It was pretty relaxed covering stories at that time, where everybody was pretty open. You would go and you would set up an interview, and people would just willingly give it. College professors, they were all very accessible. Not sure what the culture is like now, but back then it was really sort of laid back, and people really enjoyed being interviewed by the Trumpet, because it was read by everybody, and it was just so much fun. If I had to describe it in one word, it would be fun.
And remember, this wasn't, cut and paste and drag on a computer. We had the wax papers, and we had to use the X-Acto knives and cut it out and then lay them down on the sheets and roll them through the hot wax and things. If you had a misspelling or a printing change, you could cut little letters out. And I remember thinking I was a good surgeon because I could edit just putting one little S in where it belonged or something like that.
So as editor-in-chief, I've kind of just oversee everything that all of my editors and writers are working on. I also help come up with story ideas for the paper, and I go through and edit them for grammar and AP style. And then on Tuesdays, I will go into our InDesign and lay out the paper and all of the stories and put them in. And then it will move on to Creed, who's my online editor, and he helps me just go over it and make sure it looks pleasing, and then we just edit.
In conjunction with her, I get whatever she lays out for me, and just kind of the paper itself and whatever we've put in it. And then usually in companionship with the graphic designer, I let them go over it and tell me, and let them make any edits that they want to have, any aesthetic changes, or if, kind of as Annalise said, if something isn't pleasing to the eye or they think that something could be done differently, then they'll make their changes, or they'll tell me if I need to do anything. Then I just go in and make sure everything's grammatically correct and formatted correctly, and the file is a piece that we can actually work with.
As sports editor, I guess my key responsibility is coming up with ideas for the sports section, and then editing what my writers give me to make sure it's sort of what I'm looking for. It involves a lot of working with the writers to make sure that they know what they're doing and they know what I want from them, and working to get something that works for everybody, that works for Annalise and works for Creed when they go to lay it out.
Basically, I just have to, once I receive the articles from people, also I have to think about idea generation every week. But once I get the articles back, I have to edit and then send it to an editor that sends it to another editor. But basically, when I edit, I'm looking for grammar, all the basic stuff.
I remember there's a lot of controversy about Bill Clinton. I made a couple Clinton comics too, some with Bill and a few with Hillary.
But I was working with one of the other sports editors at the time, putting our paper out or laying out our page, and we always had this old beat up radio we'd listen to and the news came across the wire of Magic Johnson acquiring HIV or AIDS. So now 20 some years later, he's obviously still going strong and a big advocate, but I don't know why that sticks out. I just remember being back in this little room, putting together the paper and hearing that on the radio and being devastated, I guess, at the time. I don't know.
So when I was working for the Trumpet, all of the stuff that was going on with Trump and all of that was going on, but we didn't really talk about world events when I was working for the paper. We're going to stay focused on what's going on campus and what's relevant to us. If it happens to affect West Lib, then we'll get into that. But for the most part, it was just figuring out how to talk about what was going on here in our own little world, for lack of a better word.
I remember when September 11th happened, there was a lot of news that day. And I remember, writing and contributing to some of that kind of stuff. Cell phones were not really a thing when I was here as a student. If you wanted cell phone service, you had to kind of go stand by the flagpole and pray that, it was a windy day and it might bring you some luck. And so, of course, we had the internet, but it was also not as prevalent a news source as it is today. So I think it was important to kind of write and produce and show the people, especially those who were kind of isolated. In hindsight, you realize who was isolated and who wasn't, and that kind of thing. It was prevalent to kind of show everybody what was going on in the world and how small campuses like West Liberty reacted to such a huge tragedy kind of nationwide. I remember, people were panicking because they, were close-ish, to the Pennsylvania site, Shanksville. So parents were panicking, students were panicking. You couldn't really make calls or anything like that. And so even though the newspaper came out later on, after the events had unfolded, I think it was important to kind of show what had happened here on the hilltop. I remember vividly, there was a picture on the front page of the paper that week that was students praying around the flagpole. And I think it was just important to show how West Liberty reacted to that tragedy.
Prior to COVID, the way we laid out the paper, the way we did the paper was completely different. And Anna was with me too, so she knows the complete change that we did was not only a lot of work, but pretty amazing considering everything that we had to do between changing the format to an online platform, to switching the way that we lay out the paper. We originally was using Quark, and then we switched it to InDesign. So learning how to use a whole new program to lay out the paper was difficult at first, but I think we're starting to get the hang of it.
And at that point, all the people who had been in the paper for 3 or 4 years, all seniors had left, and it was just me and Annalise and Gabby, who was still here at the time, and me and Annalise didn't really know what we were doing, and it was we'd only just figured out how to navigate Quark and make it look pretty and nice, and then everything changed, which was quite a big shift. And then with the pandemic as well, just because my role changed. I was no longer laying out the paper, so then I'm sure it was a big jump for Annalise to do pretty much the whole show.
Working with other talented people who are very organized and know how to put out a product, this translated over very well to when I became a teacher. So working with the Trumpet, from top to bottom, everybody there was very professional. It was not haphazard. They really knew their business. And I learned probably more from working with the Trumpet than I did with a lot of my teaching classes.
I remember doing a 1 or 2, maybe 3 week submissions on school mascots and their names. So I researched, and I think it was because we were figuring out what a hilltopper was at the time or something. And so I started looking at other colleges and looking at odd names of college mascots and what they were. And that was 2 or 3 articles over a 2 or 3 week time. And I think that was one of the more fun things and enjoyable things I did.
I grew as a writer because I'm super embarrassed. I still have some of the earliest things that I wrote for news writing and reporting, and I look at them and I physically cringe because I've seen myself grow and develop my skills and become sharper, and I don't want to say more intelligent because I was always there, but I got better at wording myself. I got better at expressing myself and understanding what I wanted to say and how to say it. My favorite thing was actually to write editorials because I could voice my opinion, but I learned to do so in such a way that I could understand the other side as well. And it helped me become a lot more well-rounded and a lot more confident, because when I first started writing, I was like, I'm not sure this is any good, but I'm going to turn it in anyway and see what happens. But then I got to the point where it's like, I know this is good. I know I'm a really, really good writer. And I know this is my talent. This is where I want to be in life.
After I graduated from West Lib, I went on to become the news editor at the Wheeling newspapers for the Intelligencer and News Register. And what I learned at the Trumpet was invaluable. So using this experience to learn how to work under the pressure, how to deal with combative interviewees, how to deal with people who are angry when they call and say, you misquoted me, or that's not what I meant. I don't know what you meant, but that's what you said. So it's definitely a great learning experience.
Personal achievements, I would say really it gave me probably, aside from my actual English teacher here at West Liberty, it probably gave me a lot of writing knowledge. I'm not a writer by trade, but it gave me the ability to kind of write stuff in a way that everybody could understand it.
What I do for a living is I'm a middle school teacher. I teach science, physics-based science, and I love it. It's great. I couldn't imagine doing anything else. I mean, I did art for 23 years, and I was fantastic at that because I'm a real artist in the real world, and that was fun. But now that I'm into the science realm, I love that too. You just have to enjoy everything. I mean, since I went to West Lib to be a teacher, I guess I could teach anything and enjoy it because that's what you go for. That's the core.
And I think in the profession that I work in, which is physical therapy and athletic training and sports medicine, where we have patient interactions on a daily basis, communication is still to this day what I teach my own students is our biggest asset. And, we have to be able to listen and communicate to each other to know what's going on.
The Trumpet helped me learn how to deal with like deadlines, and I work as basically a proofreader here at Williams-Lee now. So without the Trumpet, I would not have learned how to find these little things, these little details, and pay attention to those. And seeing other people's writings and learning how to read what mistakes that some people always make.
For sure, because right now, like everything, it's so like international. So when you have like good English skills, like you speak well and you can write and you can understand, and you do some translation stuff that really helps you everywhere in the world to get a job. So I sometimes do some translation for my job too. So that's just really like the skills I like gained during working in a trumpet and study in school. So yeah.
I really want to stress, I think, how important the experience at the Trumpet was to me as a student and as a professional. It gave me real world experience on how to deal with things, how to handle things, how to conduct myself. There was a time I had to fire one of my best friends. I had to learn the balance between right now I'm your boss and you're not doing what needs to be done and your services are no longer needed, to later that night, hey, we're still friends. I'm not mad at you, but I had to do my job. So that was definitely a very good learning experience for both of us.
I just kind of feel like where I am today, I mean, I'm back at West Liberty. It's always been kind of something I wanted to do. After graduation at West Liberty, I moved away. We lived outside of DC for a while, and that was just too much. Too many people. And so came back to the area about 8 years ago. And higher ed is my thing. And so when a spot opened at West Liberty, I really wanted to come home.
If anybody has a chance to try to write a news story or to try to even write an editorial or put their voice out there, it's a good thing. I think one of the things that my dad always did was, it truly was a student run paper and organization. And he allowed us to, unless it was really, really ridiculous, which I don't really remember anything, he allowed us basically to print whatever we wanted and taught us the freedom of speech, and that media is there for that. And if you can use it in a productive way, that it's there for us. So people should take advantage of that, I think. So
I think the biggest thing that I want to put out there is that you do not have to be a journalism or broadcasting major to be a part of the Trumpet. We have a good amount of majors that are part of the Trumpet right now. I think we have a pre-law. I think Creed's graphic design, I believe. Haley, I think she's changing to an English major. So there's a lot of different majors that are involved in the Trumpet, and you can get experience for whatever job you're wanting to get into. So even though like a newspaper is kind of thought of to be, journalism or broadcasting communications, there's a lot of experience you can get between working with people to meeting deadlines to going out and doing interviews. That's a lot of things that are going to look good no matter what job you're going into. So I think you can get a lot of experience working for a school newspaper. So that's something I want to put out there.
My favorite part about being a part of the Trumpet and the newspaper was the people. I met my best friends, my very best friend on campus because we were part of the Trumpet team. And I can't tell you how many hours was spent in the newsroom, but it makes it so much better when you care about the people that are around you and they care about you and they help you with stories. It makes the world a difference.
Some of the friendships and the fun times that we had, jumping out from the dark room or the old Trumpet office, there were all kinds of nooks and crannies. I had my own office, our advisor had an office, and then there was the newsroom. And hiding behind doors and jumping out and just, fun times, good memories, good, clean, fun, good memories, and lifelong friends. I still keep in touch with, I would say, 80% of the people that I worked with at the Trumpet.